Hello and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk About It. My name is Emmanuel Jenkins. I am with the Delaware Developmental Disabilities Council. If you have not already, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and ring the bell. Ring the bell so you never miss an episode of Let's Talk About It. Today I am super excited. I am here with a friend, with a colleague, and one of my most famous legislators in the state of Delaware. Senator McBride, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be on with you.
So I know we're going to talk about family paid medical leave, which I am super excited to have that conversation. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are and how you got to where we are today.
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, am a newish state senator here in Delaware, representing the 1st Senate District, which includes parts of Wilmington, Bellefonte, and Claymont. I was elected in November of 2020, and I now have the privilege of not only serving a community that I was born and raised in, but to also now serve as the chair of the Senate Health and Social Services Committee in the Delaware State Senate. You know, I come to this job after 30 years of living and growing up and calling this community, this state home, but also after several years of advocacy. And it's one of the reasons why I so enjoy talking with you, because I feel like both you and I have had a lot of experience advocating for our communities, advocating for change. And we know how difficult it is, and we also know how rewarding it is when we are able to make progress. The advocacy work that I did prior to getting elected was really rooted in my identity as a transgender person. And I came out as transgender when I was in college. Fortunately, I was embraced by my family. I was able to continue to stay in school and keep my friends, but I also realized how lucky I was. And I wanted to make sure that the privileges that I had were no longer a privilege for the few, but a right guaranteed to everyone, no matter their gender identity or sexual orientation. And so I got involved in advocacy first here in Delaware, and then nationally with an organization called the Human Rights Campaign, which is the nation's largest LGBTQ equal rights organization. But ultimately, I decided to run for office because I saw, one, that most of the issues that matter to people on a daily basis are handled at the state level. Two, that politics and elected office is the place where every avenue of society converges and where you can make the most amount of change for the most number of people in the most number of ways possible. And three, with both of those things in mind, you know, as passionate as I was about the work that I was doing in LGBTQ equality, I really felt that, as Audre Lorde said, there's no such thing as a single issue struggle because no one lives single issue lives. And so I wanted to run for office to be able to create change for every Delawarean, no matter their background or identity, on all of the issues that matter, not just from non-discrimination protections and equal rights, but on economic opportunity and education and healthcare, because all of these different aspects of our lives come together. And if we're talking about building a world where everyone can live fully and freely, that means making progress on all of those issues. And so I ran. When I was elected, I became the first openly transgender state senator in the country. But the more amazing thing is that I'm not just working on trans rights in the legislature. I'm working on so many different issues, from expanding access to healthcare, to education, to paid family and medical leave.
You know, you even in your introduction, you mentioned something so profound and incredible, is the fact that you may have your passion and your reasons what made you kind of get into this platform, but once you got in, it was like you were already thinking, not only can I do this for me, but I can also do this for every other group of people who need someone to fight for their rights. So speaking of people's rights and really complimenting the work that you have done, this thing called family paid medical leave, what is family paid medical leave?
So this is legislation that I'm really, really excited to be sponsoring, and I'm excited that it has the momentum that it does. So right now, the reality in our country is that for most people, when they are welcoming a child into their family, when they are struggling through a family illness or a loved one who needs treatment, when they themselves need treatment, when they're a military family adjusting to deployment, in most instances, most people who face those opportunities and challenges are forced to choose between whether they continue to work and get pay, or whether they focus on those care responsibilities, whether they tackle those very human needs, but in doing so, sacrifice their pay. People are forced to choose between their job and their health, their family and their paycheck, because most people don't have access to paid time to care for their family members, to care for their health, or to welcome a child into their family. And so Senate Bill 1, the Healthy Delaware Families Act, would help to change that here in Delaware. It would create a statewide insurance program that provides partial wage replacement to Delaware workers who are temporarily out of their job because they're welcoming a child into their family, they're dealing with a serious health condition, or they're caring for a loved one who's struggling through a serious health condition, or a family that's struggling or adjusting to military deployment. And I think this is such a necessary safety net. 9 other states plus DC have adopted this kind of policy. Every other industrialized nation has it in some form or fashion. And I think fundamentally, as elected officials, we can't stop all loss or all pain, but we can make life a little bit easier for people when hard times hit. These are the most universal of human needs, human hopes, and human challenges. And we should allow people to focus on raising their child, their infant child, or addressing their serious health need without having to give up their financial security and financial well-being. And that's exactly what paid family and medical leave helps to do. It helps provide that financial support when people need it most, in those most universal human needs.
You know, I've been involved with this legislation, and we had many conversations and really some great movement towards finally pushing this over the finish line. We're like right there. But this is so crucial to all groups of people, but especially those with disabilities. I think about family members, like one of our council members, Nancy Lemus, where Nancy often has to decide or think about, or where do I go to the hospital with my loved one, or do I go and to work because we gotta pay the light bill to keep the equipment on, like a power wheelchair or a ventilator or all those medical needs, and no one should have to juggle with that. So really, you touched a little bit about this already, but why is this legislation not only important, but why was it so important for you to get behind such a big initiative? You came in full steam ahead, a new elected official, and took on one of the biggest challenges that Delaware, not only Delaware, but the country has been facing for such a long time. What made you say this is important and we need to do it right now?
You really summed it up nicely. I did bite off quite a lot of work when I decided to focus on this. But I will just say, before I talk about why this issue is so important to me personally, I really believe that as elected officials, we have a moral responsibility to do as much good as we can while we are able to do it. And we never know how long we have. We never know how long we have on this earth, and we never know how long we have in a particular position. And so it was important for me to hit the ground running and to use the opportunity and the platform that I had to not just, pass some resolutions, but to help make meaningful change for Delawareans and our families. I come to this as someone who served as the caregiver to my husband, Andy, during his battle with cancer. Andy and I fell in love both at an early point in our careers. We were in our 20s, and we were both fighting for equality. Andy was the kindest, funniest, smartest, goofiest person that I ever met in my entire life. About a year or so into our relationship, he was diagnosed with a very serious form of cancer. And as two young people living in Washington, D.C. at the time, I was his primary caregiver through really extensive surgery, through radiation and chemotherapy. I was by his side as his family caregiver, helping him suction his tracheostomy tube, dress his wounds, change his feeding tube bag, as he focused his energy on trying to heal from his surgery, and then eventually heal from the radiation and chemotherapy that was really challenging for him personally and physically. About 8 months after getting a clean bill of health, he received the news that every cancer patient fears, which was that his cancer was back, it had spread, and it was terminal. And as his primary caregiver, I was able to not only be there by his side to help him through what ended up being the last couple weeks of his life, but also because we both had access to paid leave, I was able to be there as his girlfriend, fiance, and eventually wife during the final month of his life when we decided to get married just 4 days before he passed away. And while Andy lost his life, I think both of us, I certainly, and I believe he would have considered himself lucky because he had health insurance that allowed him to get the care that he needed to hopefully save his life, but in the end, at least prolong his life. And we both had access to paid leave so that he could focus on getting the treatment that he needed, and I could focus on being there by his side, not just to provide care for him, but also to provide love and support emotionally for him. And at the end of the day, even though we lost his life, we were lucky because so many people don't have those opportunities. So many people don't have that support system. And ultimately, I believe that paid family and medical leave shouldn't be a matter of luck. It should be the law of the land. And that's really rooted in my own experience, seeing how much paid leave made a difference. And it's really the reason why, when I got elected, I said, I've got to summon the energy and the effort and the determination to try to push this through, because I know how much of a difference it made for me. I can't imagine having to go through the challenges that Andy and I faced without it.
Wow. That kind of puts that perspective or the point of view on this, that this is important for everybody, whether you are a new married couple in the honeymoon stage, or someone who's been married for years, or someone who's not married. I think about my own life and how, because of the pandemic and the shortages on conflicts, my wife does everything. And I can openly, talk about that on within this conversation, because I think it's important for people to know that there's not this notion that because you're with someone that you're almost required to do these things. And I think that's a misunderstanding, that people do things because they love you. So, in the time of you really being there for your husband, of course y'all were together, so you did it, but it rooted from love. And I think family paid medical leave gives that extra layer of a love without wearing. And I know a lot about the bill because we had conversations, but it's not until today that I realized that this is just another layer of love.
Yeah.
You should not have to love him where he at the same time. And I think about moms, I think about dads. I remember, I got 13 surgeries in total, and I remember every single surgery I got. My mom got to, once I woke up and she knew I was alive, she had to jet back to the lower part of Delaware to go back to work.
Yep. Yep.
So it's crucial that we do this now, to push this legislation over the finish line. And I strongly feel we are there. We are right there. But thank you for being so open and honest to your journey. Speaking of that famous finish line that we can't wait for, how close do you feel that we are to that finish line, to give that extra layer of love to everyone?
Well, I am incredibly optimistic that we are going to pass paid family and medical leave in Delaware this year. Governor Carney endorsed the legislation in his State of the State address in January, which is a big deal. It's a big deal. And so working with Governor Carney and leadership in both the House and the Senate, I believe that we're going to get this over the finish line. Now, as well as anyone, as someone who's an advocate who works with the state, that passing a law isn't the end of the road, right? There's always a period for implementation. And what we're passing here is creating a pretty big new program. And so it's going to take time to set up. And if we pass it this year, the state will begin the process of hiring the staff and building out the program and platform and getting the funds necessary to provide this benefit. And so it's not going to be until 2026, which feels a long way off and is a long way off, that the benefit will be able to be accessed. But the sooner we pass it, the sooner the benefit will be ready for people to access it. It does take time to set up the program, but this is going to be the year, I believe, that we pass it. And then in the next 4 years, people will be able to access the program and the benefit and get that necessary support. And, it's always a hard question, and it's always hard to talk about that timeline, because we needed this benefit yesterday, right? Like, we needed this passed years ago. We needed, there are people who for so long have gone without this benefit. And it breaks my heart that there are people tomorrow and the next day and the next day who won't yet be able to access this. But the sooner we pass it, the sooner we can get this benefit out the door into people's pockets when they need it. And it's going to take a little bit of time, but that major hurdle of passing it, I believe, will happen this year.
I know you are a person of challenge. You came in, you took up one of the biggest challenges ever, as I said earlier. So I'm gonna challenge you live on YouTube that when we pass this bill, when this bill goes over the finish line, that we somehow meet up to go out to dinner to celebrate this accomplishment, and hashtag it all over social media that we here in Delaware have done it. I will travel. I will meet halfway to meet up to celebrate. But I'm holding you to a get together when we push this over the finish line, that we meet up for dinner.
Oh, I'm so game. I am so game for that. We've got to do that. And if and when we pass it, I look forward to you being there at the bill signing when Governor Carney signs it into law. Should we get it over the finish line? I'm always knocking on wood right now, because I don't want to.
You and me both.
And I'm feeling very optimistic. But as you know, nothing's done until it's done, and politics, particularly legislative politics, is always an interesting endeavor.
Well, I thank you. I thank you from the bottom of my heart, to really remember that motto in the disability community: nothing about us without us.
Mm.
When you started this conversation, the first thing you did was let me call the disability council.
Right.
Let me rally up those folks. And when the tour bus came for family paid medical leave, Nancy Levis was there with Christopher, and it's because of your leadership that you made sure that we were at the table doing the development of this bill, and we have seen some amendments and all that jazz. But I appreciate being part of that conversation.
Well,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I so appreciate your partnership on this and the partnership of so many advocates in the disability community. You've highlighted so many times the heightened need for a policy like paid family and medical leave for those in the disability community and their family members, right? This is going to help ensure that more people can work and that more people are able to access family caregiving. And both, I think, are both of those goals, both of those positives, I think, are going to pay dividends for so many folks, particularly folks in any kind of marginalized community who have disproportionate and heightened barriers to this kind of benefit without a statewide law like SB1.
One of the things that we learn, we say in the legislation world is if and when. But I'm like you, I'm so optimistic that we are so close to doing this. What can people do right now? Right now, like not even wait till tomorrow, but what can we do right now to ensure that we get this pushed over the finish line?
That's a great question, and we're talking about how optimistic we are, and that at the same time, there's always challenges when trying to get any kind of major legislation through. And so I absolutely encourage people to reach out to their legislator, to let them know that you support paid family and medical leave, that you support Senate Bill 1. You can go through the Delaware Cares Coalition, decares.org, and they've got an easy website to navigate, to contact your legislators, to make sure they hear from you and to push them, if they're not already supportive, to support this legislation.
So no time is wasted. He can do it now, right now, to ensure that you connect with your legislator. You let them know how important this is to you. As I say in almost every video, every legislator is there because we put them there. Mm-hmm. So now we need to really not be afraid to connect with them, for them to fight for the rights of all people in this great state of Delaware. And I believe I have one more question, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. Is there anything else? You shared almost everything. But I always want to give people the final 30 seconds to share anything that you would like to share with us.
Well, I would just say, first off, thank you for having me. It is always a pleasure spending time with you and sharing space with you. This is just such an incredible opportunity for Delaware to take a meaningful step forward, to make our state both more compassionate and more competitive at the same time. We know these policies are a win-win-win. They're a win for workers, they're a win for businesses, and they're a win for our state. And so I just really look forward to continuing to work with you and so many advocates across Delaware to pass Senate Bill 1, because then we will know that we did what we could when we had the opportunity to provide this necessary support system for folks. And it's going to make a real difference in people's lives. And it most assuredly will help save lives.
So let's push this over the finish line so we can all win. And then after we win, we can go out for some
go out for some good food.
Yes. So Senator McBride, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for taking a moment out of your busy schedule and sitting down with me to have this conversation. A reminder to all the viewers and listeners, you may be listening on the podcast or you may be viewing this on YouTube. Do not forget to follow our YouTube channel, subscribe to our YouTube channel, ring the bell, follow us on all social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and soon to come on LinkedIn. We're not there yet, but we will be on LinkedIn very shortly. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will catch you on the next one. Bye bye, everybody.